Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
What's finite consciousness? If our consciousness becomes finite enough, will it intersect with the divine? Mission Evolution Radio Show is coming to you around the world on the Exxon Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore the nature of the divine and consciousness is the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life, Douglas Gillette. Douglas has an M.A.R.S. from the University of Chicago and a Master's of Divinity from Chicago Theological Seminary. Douglas is a best-selling author of 9 books on depth psychology and spirituality. He recently retired as a teacher in the Emeritus program at Oakton College, where he taught for 20 years. He's still teaching, facilitating via Zoom, an ongoing series of book discussion groups. Douglas is also a retired pastor and pastoral counselor who continues to serve as a life's guide. His website, DouglasGilletteCreations.com. Douglas, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Thank you, Gwilda. Great opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
It's so fun to work together. Now, your bio says you have an M.A.R.S. from the University of Chicago. What's an M.A.R.S.?
Master of Religious Studies.
Ah, okay. I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah,
so, yeah. So many people have these Doctor of Divinity that they pay $35 for off the web. It's wonderful to see a truly educated person.
Yeah.
What drew you to become a pastor?
I tell you the truth, I tried a number of different, I say denominations, but it's more than denominations, religious systems. Looking for where I might fit the best, realizing that, in fact, I don't really quite fit anywhere. And I had the great fortune to meet a guy by the name of Dr. Robert Moore, with whom I co-authored our first book years ago, teaching at the Christianity, but in a way that allowed for levels of interpretation. In other words, archetypal. He was a Jungian guy.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So that allowed me to, that viewpoint allowed me to see how I could fit my worldview into a more less literalistic and more open-minded Christian worldview. So that's why. So then I got educated to try to do that.
So you speak of it being archetypal rather than literal, I would guess. And it occurs to me, I've certainly noticed that every person really kind of needs a different way of relating because everybody is so different and we're all coming from different levels of understanding of the divine or of consciousness. So does the archetypal approach leave that kind of leeway?
It does. I think that there are many layers of reality of who we are, what we are, how we can think, how we can experience things, and so forth. And one is the literal. I mean, I'm by moving to the archetypal, which is deeper. It's in the collective unconscious, according to Jung. By moving to that level, things can appear, whatever they are in the literalistic level, they are nuanced and metaphorical and symbolic and can work with the psyche at a deeper level than say CNN or something could tape on the daily news. So we have these multiple layers or levels on which we all inhabit, and in my view, none cancels the others, and I try to live on multiple levels at the same time, and I recommend it.
Sounds a little confusing. Now we have
Uh,
the language of dreams is metaphorical and allegorical as well. Is it one of those layers a little more into the out of the alpha and into the beta and theta?
yeah, I think dreams, again, dreams come at different levels too. Uh, there's, light dreaming and deeper dreaming and no dreaming, and that we're aware of anyway. And I think dreams, in my experience, the big ones anyway, carry multiple levels of meaning. So that what and furthermore, every character in most dreams is us, doing, from the unconscious, posing it as these different figures. So yeah, as far as brain waves are concerned, I'm not a student of that really, but yeah, dreams, most especially the big dreams, can have 2 or 3 layers of meaning.
And then we take it, to the Aboriginals or the Native Americans or the Tibetans when they were dealing with shamanism. The shamanic journey trance also speaks in that same language.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. So where are we accessing? Who are we talking to at that level?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, Again, with multiple layers of answers, I would say we're talking at one way to think about it is we're talking to a deeper or higher series of, or one of a series of I's, capital I. We're talking to ourselves at a deeper, higher register. But what are ourselves at a deeper or higher register? Well, eventually, at some point, they become quote unquote divine or semi-divine or even demonic. And at a deeper or higher level, eventually I think they do become the one, the I, capital I.
You know what I love about you saying deeper and higher, because particularly in the New Age faction, it's all higher and higher.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that's imbalanced. It ends up being polarized and fairly luciferic, doesn't it?
I think so because I mean, there's no good way to map or chart, or that I know of, or diagram the psyche. Really, all the diagrams have some truth and some not. Like trying to represent anything that is organic and spiritual in a kind of straight line, graph doesn't work too well. I'm thinking of F.W.H. Myers' system right now, his way of graphing deeper and higher. Of course, the cartoon version of that is light is all above, is higher, and darkness is below. And I'm okay with that kind of language. But I do think it's a little arbitrary. And anyway, whatever it is, we span all of that territory.
Well,
So
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to finish that thought with, so since we do, and all of reality, capital R, spans all that territory, that's the dark or the deeper is part of us too. And from a Jungian perspective, as much of that needs to be lifted up, made conscious, and integrated with the light as possible. There is a cutoff point, though, where both higher and lower, maybe not so much higher, but in the darker regions of the psyche, where you need to stop trying to integrate it, because to use that analogy of the darkness below, it gets too dark, and it's too big, and it's too powerful. And people that play with it get sucked into it.
Can't the same be said for getting too high?
It can. If you don't have a well enough glued together ego consciousness or I, you will tend to disintegrate either way, up or down. So the goal for me has always been to stretch up and stretch down, but there's a certain point at which it begins to feel too alien or too crazy, either up or down, and I stop, because I'm not big enough and strong enough as an ego identity to go that full journey.
Well, it's a path to madness, really, isn't it? Because we don't have any way of anchoring it.
Right.
Yeah. I think of the polarities. Our body, we have to have polarities. Our body wouldn't run if we didn't have positive and negative charges.
Right.
That's the way the cell draws in what it needs and repels what it doesn't need. If you think of it that way, everything is really working in a circle, like in a toroidal field, versus a line up and a line down. So they interact with each other on all levels very intricately, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, what we call the human psyche, to me, is so complicated, and it is capable of traveling so many different paths, and around and it's up and down and this and that it is easy to get lost in the woods.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are lost in the woods at this point.
Yeah.
But what's it look like? I mean, if we try to travel too far either direction, but if we counterbalance each time we expand, if we expand equally to the light and to the dark, does that make it more manageable?
I think it does. Again, it takes a strong and coherent ego that isn't too rigid or too porous. And really, it takes a life guide. We need help. We need somebody who's traveled that balancing thing up and down, that's gone farther than we have.
So are you talking about incarnate life guide or a spiritual life guide?
Could be either. There are advantages to being incarnate, I think. The physical presence and that sort of thing. But I would have to say that most of the best of my life guides were incarnate and aren't anymore. And some, so they're disincarnate. But some, few, I think have never been incarnate in our sense of the word. And they're good.
Shamanically speaking, we talk of people that have been incarnate but are no longer as helping spirits versus simply spirits. Is that how you're looking at it?
Yeah.
Well, it's just about time for us to take a station break. On the other side, we will continue this lovely discussion. Douglas and I will return very shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
Is calm, the night has fallen. I have reached the end of days. What's real is not reason.
Can you expand your consciousness? Why would you want to? With us discussing consciousness is Douglas M. Gillette. Douglas is the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life. Douglas, what constitutes a conscious expanding experience?
There are all kinds of things that can trigger it, of course, in my experience of life. But it is has been a sense for me of hard to put into words. Growing, certainly emotionally and also cognitively. More important, the emotional, it's like maturation or ripening. And so that I accept and embrace more and more of who and what I am or discover myself to be, but from, not but, yet from a position of strength and groundedness. There's the danger you mentioned earlier of if you're not sufficiently grounded, expansion can feel crazy making, and you can splinter and fly off in different directions. So the advantages of growing, I think, are, I mean, for me, it is the capacity, the growing capacity to react less, to be less reactive to the static and the danger and all this and the, as well as the good things sort of in life, and to be more I hope wiser, firm but gentler, a help and an aid to others, including, by the way, our 2.5-year-old granddaughter who lives with us now. And no, just a sense of self-satisfaction in becoming richer, emotionally, cognitively, and deeper, and learning to organically love more.
What is a PSI experience?
Well, parapsychological. Experiences of, I would say, the future, the past can be, and also of entities that have been incarnate, entities that have never been incarnate, at least not in our medium. Psi experiences are, for me, have included such things as precognition and synchronicity and apparitions, both incipient and full-on visual. But I think that most psi the way I would define it is most psi experiences are on a level similar to, different from, but in the same ballpark as our normal daily life levels. That's just how I would experience them. It's just more of reality, but not necessarily in and of themselves descending deeper or ascending higher, or at least not by much. I contrast psi experiences in that way, or PSI, as with what I call spiritual experiences, which are expanding, exalting, joyous, in which I feel like I acquire more wisdom, wholeness, and become more loving.
So let me see if I got the two straight here. If I'm sitting here in my living room doing normal things, I'm not particularly zoning out or anything else, and suddenly have a sensing of a disembodied spirit around me, say I'm sensitive like that, that would be a psi experience. If I'm sitting in my living room kind of zoning a little bit and all of a sudden am filled with this absolute inspiration and joy and I goosebump all over, that would be a spiritual experience?
Yeah. I think that I don't understand those worlds in a or those dimensions or elements of consciousness really in any kind of doctrinaire way, but I and I wouldn't make a hard distinction because between the psi and the spiritual. But what you said simplifies it, um, uh, streamlines it in that sense. I don't know. I don't know. I just know how I feel in response to those different kinds of experiences.
It is more of a felt sense, isn't it?
It is a felt sense, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned having many psi experiences and consciousness expanding spiritual experiences. Would you
Yeah.
mind sharing some with us?
Okay. Psi experiences. I mean, here's one. Um, I had ended a love triangle with two different Mexican women, uh, and I was in the church at that time, and one of my parishioners, I just one part of this huge thing. One of my parishioners said after the service, "I saw a Mexican woman standing with you beside the pulpit," and I said, and I knew that Cheryl was psychic. I said, "Really? Okay. Was she this one? No. Was she that one? No. Was she anybody that I know now? No. But you are going to be with her." I said, "Okay. All right." Next, one of the next things that happened with that was I needed to hire someone to come in and cook and clean for me because I'd just taken my mother into my apartment in Chicago with me and realized I couldn't handle it all. And the thought came to me. I hadn't interviewed anybody yet. I ended up interviewing two women. Uh, I'm going to marry the woman I hire.
Oh, wow.
It's like, well, okay, where'd
Careful
that come
who
from?
you hire.
Yeah, where'd that come from? And then a third, this is about precognition, I guess. A third thing was there was a magazine downstairs in the foyer with a picture of a Maya, uh, Mexican Native American, in some kind of festival with big banana leaves on her head and so forth. I saw that picture and I said, "That's her." I copied the picture, put the magazine back. A few weeks later, I interviewed two women, and the first one looked just like the woman in the picture of the magazine. She was about the height and so forth of the woman that Cheryl had described to me. And I immediately felt this total sense of fulfillment with her. I hired her. The thing is, she was already married.
Ooh, that's not good.
So, yeah, so I thought, well, I don't know what all that was about. And I just put it off to the side. And I would take her back and forth to home when she would come once a week. And gradually, over a period of months, she started talking about her marriage, which was horrible. And eventually, I just felt this selfless love for her that she was smart, energetic. She didn't deserve the life she had. And whether I would ever be with her or not, I decided I would offer my help in helping her escape from her situation, which I did. And later, a few months later, we did start talking out. Sent her, got her on a plane to Houston, where most of her relatives were. We started talking on the phone. I moved to Houston. We got married, and it's been 29 years now of just, I was right about, so I was precognizing this wonderful relationship. But there's a lot more to it. I'll just mention one more thing. When she was still in Mexico and just had married this guy, fellow Mexican migrant worker. She just on a lark went to a psychic uh, near the town where she lived, and the psychic told her, "Okay, you're married to this guy, but this is not the man you're going to be with. He lives in the north, uh, and you're going to find him, and he you, and that's who you're going to make a life together with." And my wife just said, well, that's nuts. I'm in love with this guy. I just married him. Well, that is what happened.
Yeah.
Their original goal was Houston, but they ended up in Chicago, where I was living. And it's a long story, but that for me is a beautiful example of a psi experience,
Okay.
precognitive, just kind of all over the place, but not, but still on this level of reality, if you know what I mean.
I do. I do. So, you mentioned psychics. I know there's a certain amount of things we have to watch out for if we're
Yeah.
psychic, or if we go to a psychic, and it has to do with that multidimensionality of reality. It's like where are you reading versus where my intention goes? And
Right.
does your reading alter my intention and change my life's path to what you're reading versus the other way around? Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I would be surprised if a psychic reading per se changed anything. I guess it would be up to the person who's the subject of the reading as to how much cognitive stuff.
So in your description, you got the psychic readings, but then you just let it sit until you saw it, and then it was
Yeah.
recognition versus, ooh, I don't want to go that way, or I'm looking for that. It was just, that's interesting. And then it popped up later.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. Well, it is, again, that wonderful moment where we need to take another station break. And Douglas, on the other side, we're going to get into something really fun. I'm going to ask you, what is reality? Douglas and I will be right back to continue our discussion, so you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
One people, one nation, searching through the night. One people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind. I am scattered upon the wind. I've been broken, shattered, cast to the wind.
What's real? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us discussing reality is Douglas M. Gillette. His website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. So, Douglas, as promised, what is reality?
I don't know.
Oh, now that doesn't help.
No, I'm going to say some things that I suspect it is. I don't know what it is, capital R. I don't know anyone who does definitively, because it is indeterminately vast, complex, and so forth. But what I think it is, and what I've experienced it as, is the divine psyche, which has no limits, a center which is everywhere, and a circle which is a circumference which is nowhere. I think we live and move and have our being, as the ancient Greek poet said, within the psychic medium that is the consciousness of the infinite person, who manifests, as the ancient Egyptians said, in these thousands. Thou hast become these thousands. Of course, they meant millions, billions, trillions. So we live within the divine psyche. That's what I think reality is.
So if we live within the divine psyche, we apparently are living a very narrow bandwidth of all it is, yes? Okay. So does that mean that, as we were speaking earlier, that as we expand, both higher and lower, that we can possibly, enter the unity consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in rare and extraordinary states of consciousness, there is a break. We can get to the point where there's a breakthrough into into, I don't know if we actually become one. I mean, I think we do in those moments, but I don't think at least while we're here at this level, that we're meant to sort of go there all the time. I at least have gotten glimpses of feelings and intuitive flashes and actually sometimes whole hours of feeling like I'm there, but and am it in some way, the infinite psyche, the infinite consciousness. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm here for some set of reasons, though, in this more finite consciousness band, for reasons some of which I think I understand or have some idea about, and for reasons which I don't even attempt to understand because they're going to be beyond me.
So where does death fit in all this? What we die. Okay, we're out of our body. Now where do we find ourselves?
I think we find ourselves in another medium, another dimension. I would guess probably from some of my dreams, and I guess you can call them visions that I've had, and also apparitions that are somewhere before and after they show up to me and others. Some sort of environment that is seems like it is like and not like this one. The more etheric, I guess the language would be, the more etheric environments that these other psyches and presences inhabit. I don't know. I feel them. I think it's important. For me, it's important to move from this environment after biological death to an environment that isn't so weird or so strange or so odd from my present experience, so divorced from that I'll feel like alien.
Yeah, that you can't navigate at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's whatever. I mean, I'm open, whatever.
Do you think that the more we work here and the more expansive we become here, when it comes time to go, we have more options of where to navigate?
I think so. I don't know, but the world's spiritual traditions, one way, in many ways, not one way or another, many ways, do affirm that for the most part. And it would make sense because to me anyway, because the more I know and intuit and feel here in this environment, the broader and richer and deeper it becomes. So I think what we do here does probably, the enriching that we're able to do here probably does carry forward into the next proximate life or lives. And so I think we have different destinations, after death.
So what are the challenges of reconciling your pastoral training with your current view of reality? They seem a little disparate.
They do if you're talking about conventional clergy, conventional churches, and so forth, and doctrine and so on. But and this is one thing that has attracted me to the archetypal stuff, the deeper stuff, the higher stuff, it is all there as part of the largely mystical heritage of Christianity. It's there in Judaism, Islam, and other religions as well. It's there. It's just that it's not as institutionalized. It's not what is preached on Sunday mornings, if you're a Christian, and so forth, for the most part. But it is part of the Christian tradition. I think of myself as an Egypto-Hellenic, Neoplatonist Christian universalist.
Oh my goodness. That about covers it, yes.
It covers much of it, not all of it, maybe. I think the divine is trying to reach us wherever we are, whenever we are, and lift us into ecstasy and joy and love. Sometimes that lifting process is painful for us, and then there are all the purposes of God, most of which I don't understand and couldn't understand. But I think, for people who are sensitive to dimensions and I guess you would say gradations or registers of spirit, including their own, in a certain sense, it doesn't matter what, in that sense, to you personally, what religious group you're with.
So we've been talking about it a little bit. How about we define divine?
Gwilda.
I'm sorry, I'm being mean, aren't I?
No, that's huge. That is so huge. As I'm sure you know. Divine, in my view, on the one hand, is first of all everything that is or that we know of. Okay, that's at one level. Divine is, and that includes the light and the dark too. At another level, it is dimensions and entities above this dimension. I mean, for example, angels, demons, bodhisattvas, whatever you want to call them, helpers and hinderers, they're within the divine psyche too.
So it's that more expansive place.
It's a more expansive thing, but if you leave it just at that though, I don't think we can ever know the divine in and of itself, at least not incarnate as we are now. But we can know the divine as it self-expresses to finite creatures, where it meets us as we are moving toward it. And so that's where God images come from, whose ever God images.
You said something interesting. You said that when we were talking about what is the divine, you included the entities that aren't necessarily so friendly as we think of them.
Mm-hmm.
How come they're included in that?
Because I don't like them. I don't want anything to do with them. They destroy people's lives here and in other realms of reality. At the same time, they, in my view, must serve a purpose, which I don't understand and don't claim to or even want to try, some purpose or purposes that the God of love has. If they didn't, I mean, if God is infinite, then there is nothing outside of God. There's nothing outside of the infinite. So they must be a part of, and I don't say that as a Pollyanna because I've seen people's lives shredded. All you have to do is turn on the news if you haven't experienced it directly and see it happening all over the place, not just people, other persons that are not human animals, so forth. I don't know that I don't know what the divine purposes are, except I sense, for me at least, and for some of the people that I know, the among the purposes are experiences of joy, ecstasy, wholeness, gratitude, love, etc. I don't I don't know what the rest of it is in the dark part. For me, in moderate doses, some of the darkness and the entities that inhabit them and uh, are actually turn out to be blessings if they're spurs to deeper, higher growth, wisdom, uh, watchfulness of one's boundaries, care for others, etc. So
So
that
you're saying they can work kind of like the coyote energy or the trickster energy
they
in
can, yeah,
tricking you into different experience of life and a different expression.
which makes you deeper, richer, more mature, etc. In moderate doses. In horrific doses, I don't know. I have to leave that question up to God because I can't answer it.
I hear you there. Well, it is time again for another station break. Please stay with us as Douglas and I continue to explore depth psychology and spirituality. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org.
The night, one people, one nation, searching for the light. One people, one nation, coming from the stars. One people, one nation, to heal the brilliant feathers of an unearthly hue glide by on the edge of his dream. A whisper of touch, an unheard song. Whose bird takes flight, prompted by his broken heart.
Is nature conscious? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Douglas M. Gillette. His website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. Douglas, where does nature fit in with all this? You know, the earth, the trees, the sky. Where is nature conscious in the way you're looking at things?
You got me. But I think that nature behaves as a whole, and I include the known universe. I think nature behaves as if it were a personish, at least. I do think it is in some kind of apparent to me disjunction with absolute goodness and love and so forth, the divine in that way.
So you're seeing it as an expression of the divine. Can we align with it and become more
Yeah.
divine?
I do see it as a partial or fragmentary expression of the divine, as all things must be. Uh, but yes, to your question, can we align with it and then, like the Pythagoreans, move beyond it? Because nature is not, for me, the end all and be all, or becoming one with it, the end of spiritual growth. In a very real way, we already are one with it, whether we're conscious of that or not, because we are whatever else we may be, and I think we are that else. We are nature. It's not like we parachuted in here from some other dimension in any simple way. We are expressions of nature, and our own ferocity is an expression of the ferociousness of nature. So um, the the Pythagoreans, as you know, um, were trying to. They believed that all incarnations, over and over and on, and so on, all creatures were eventually one natural thing that they called the all. And the first unitive experience was to, in Pythagoreanism, was to embrace and know yourself as the all that is nature, or the quote unquote physical world. Beyond that, once you got that far, you could see, through the cracks and little fissures and holes in it, you could see that there was infinite goodness beyond that. So I subscribe sort of to the physicist David Bohm's idea that there's an implicate order, implicate, in which everything is itself and everything else, and without contradiction, one. Then there's various stages and levels and so on of the explicating level of what is implicate. And the world we live in, or are most conscious of most of the time, is part of that explicated reality. It shows up, or is it's a representation of the one in fragmentary form.
Isn't everything just a little piece of the divine?
It is a little piece of the divine, at the same time, like a hologram, which David Bohm also used as an analogy. Each little piece, while a piece of the explicated or relativistic world, is in itself the whole.
Just like we see the oak tree in the acorn.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about finite consciousness somewhat. How does the divine interface with finite consciousness?
I think finite consciousness is the divine, as if it were finite. That's the first thing. And to realize that is like, oh, okay.
Yeah, try that on me again. I didn't realize it.
Yeah, that's Benoit Mandelbrot. Everything is made of infinity. That's the ancient Egyptians. Thou hast made thyself into these millions, or these thousands. So finite consciousness is the divine, representing itself as if it were finite. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's right here, right now. That's one level. Second level is, for me, the infinite consciousness manifests to finite consciousnesses as if they were different from it or other than it. And so that's where our images of the divine come from. We bring what we can of our finiteness, and the infinite somehow, though the finite and the infinite are never supposed to meet, somehow, numerically, mathematically, but somehow they do. And so we are it already, we just don't know it. And we need to know it at higher and higher and deeper levels.
So the more we perceive ourselves as absolutely finite, the narrower our expansiveness?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. If that's all you perceive about yourself and others is the literal-ish level of reality and the finite, which is a kind of literalism. That guarantees the lack of spiritual growth.
And that kind of exemplifies of what's wrong in the world today, yes?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Because when you're in that extremely contracted, finite place, you don't have any empathy and you can't relate to others
Right.
in a heart-to-heart way.
No, yep. Absolutely.
So what caused that contraction?
I don't know, of course, but I think of it again at several possible levels. One is that it was something God slash the divine wanted to experience, contraction, otherness than its infinite self. Uh, B, there may be some benefits that the divine wishes to bestow that can only be bestowed through the manifestation of finite consciousnesses. I can think of, why. Ultimately, that's up to God. But if we weren't finite, we couldn't meet each other. For one thing, we couldn't love each other. We couldn't. There would be no each other if we weren't finite. So there's some value that the divine is attaching to the manifestation of itself as if it were finite creatures. The story I told about some of the prefigurations of my wife's and my getting together, there would be no love and building a life together if we weren't finite.
Right, because if you're infinite, you're already there, right?
You're already there, and you're
already
everything.
there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what's going to happen to religion as the individual's consciousness come closer to merging with the divine?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it can. Depends on exactly what you're asking.
Well, I'm not talking about spirituality. I'm talking about religion.
Yeah, I know, organized religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens to organized religion? It withers or becomes the last refuge for the circlers of the wagons who want to shut out as much of the size and magnitude and wonder and so on of the world. On the other hand, as I mentioned before, all the world's religious traditions have had a mystical path or an expansive path in them, just largely ignored or largely suppressed.
Or crunched down into the finite.
Yeah, right. Okay. Right. So what happens to the organized religions? I don't care. It's whatever. I wish that the door to more churches, speaking as a Christian, had a sign that said something like, enter here and experience the divine in a new and expanded and wondrous and life enriching way. Instead of that, what I've seen is a sign that says, check brain at door.
Gotcha.
And increasingly, I've seen a sign that says, check heart at door.
Interesting. Well, Douglas, it is just about the end of the show, and therefore, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what's your mission?
I'm 76 plus, so my mission has always been to help people expand their open their hearts, open their thoughts to each other and to what I call God. And that's always been my mission, to help build bridges and connect and find common ground and expose people to each other and to dimensions that they have maybe not even imagined. At 76 plus, my main mission, it was still that. That's what we're doing here. You're helping me to do that, and hopefully I'm helping you too. But it's mostly more narrow. It's protect and provide for the best life that I can contribute to for my family and friends and so forth. And that's okay. That's great.
That's important. Well,
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. Douglas, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your thoughts.
Oh, thanks a lot, Gwilda. It's always more than a pleasure. It's deeply enjoyable for me.
Thank you. Our guest this hour has been Douglas M. Gillette, the author of Soul Making, The Realization of the Mystical Life. To find out more about Douglas, where you can find his books and all he has to offer, visit his website, douglasgilletteCreations.com. This has been Mission Evolution with Gwilda Wiyaka. For more information or to enjoy past archived episodes, visit www.missionevolution.org. But please, be sure to continue bringing information, resources, and support to our evolving world.
One people, one nation.